Yesterday afternoon, we ended up talking about creating an action. So I thought I'd start the day with that, and then we'll move right into the real important part of this morning, which is smart object technology. I did want to do kind of a close-up of this image I worked with yesterday because I kind of went through that very quickly and it was hard to see the image. But this is the image. This is a panorama. And I'll be happy to use a different image as well. But just to create the initial action, let's bring out the Actions panel. Going to Window, Actions, and there it is. So when you create an action, the first thing you want to do is to have a folder where you put your actions, and that's called an action set. So I'm going to zoom up, and we're going to create a new action set here, and we'll call this CL. And now it's inside the set where we create different actions. And this first action I want to create is a border rule. So we'll call this border rule. And now when we click record, everything we do is going to be recorded in the action. So as I kind of mentioned yesterday, when you're ready to create an action, clear the deck, turn off the phone, don't get up and go cook dinner. Just go ahead and concentrate on getting the action done, because as you're recording, if you forget that you're recording, and I'm speaking from experience, by the way, if you forget that you're recording and you go through half the day doing things, it's going to be recorded in action. So here we go. So the first thing to do in this particular action, now that I've clicked record, notice the red button at the bottom of the Actions panel. The first thing I want to do is to type the letter D on the keyboard. What that does, it defaults the foreground and background color. So black is in the foreground and white is in the background. The next thing I want to do is expand the canvas. And by the way, I'm working on a layer that has a background. So at this point, I'm not working on a smart object. If I create, and I have created an action, we'll look at that to do this for smart objects. And it runs just a little differently. But to get you into creating actions, I thought I'd start out with this particular image. Next, we're going to go to Image and Canvas Size. And here we're going to expand the canvas using these options. When you go to Canvas Size, you can type in the actual width and height in pixels, inches, centimeters, whatever. Or you can click the relative button. When you click the relative button, you can type in the inches that you want to expand. So I just want to expand 2 inches for the width and 2 inches for the height. And this is an anchor area where whenever you expand your canvas, you can have it lock the image in a certain area. Of course, we want it to be locked in right into the center so it expands all the way around the image. We also want to expand the canvas with the background color, which happens to be white. And let's select OK, and there we have our expanded canvas. So the next thing we want to do is put the rule around the edge of this frame. And to do that, we'll just do Select All. And this gives an active selection or marching ants all the way around the edge of the frame itself. And from this point, we go to Edit and use something called Stroke. And here we want to use black color, which happens to be there. If you click color, you can change the color to any color you want. And 3 pixels I find to be a very fine, thin rule, very nicely done. And we'll use the center location. And using the center location will ensure us a very nice corner edge. And the image keeps swinging back and forth. Normal blending mode, 100% opacity, those are variables. And even though the rule has been set there, you really don't see it. Even if we deselect the active selection, you still don't see it because we have kind of a black background in view there. Let's go to a window view. You still can't really see it, but the next time we expand the canvas, Under image canvas size, the same thing we've just done, 2 inches on the top and bottom width and height. And now you can see where the rule is. And I'll zoom up on this. And you can see how nice this has given us that nice little rule. And some actions I've made it so there's a little more room at the bottom of the image, for instance. And let's go ahead and do that with this particular action. I'm going back now to image canvas size. I'm going to anchor at the very top, and where it has height, I'm going to add just maybe 0.25, a quarter of an inch. And notice that it's just given a little extra weight at the bottom. That's done so we can utilize a signature if you want to sign your image. And of course, I want to put in the text. So at this point, I'm going to stop recording this action, and that's done by clicking on the square just to the left of the red circle. Now here's the rule. Whenever you create an action, the very first thing you do is go back and play the action. Because sometimes if we put a problem in there, we can troubleshoot the action right away. So what I like to do is go back in history, go back to the beginning part of the image, and then select the action name, border rule. We can expand it to see the steps, and then click play. And it took less than a second to do all of that. So when you think about creating an action, it's a macro of step-by-step of what you're doing. The only thing that I can think of right now that an action will not do a brush stroke. There's probably a way to get it to do something of that nature, but when you do a brush stroke, an action cannot record that per se. Okay. Let's run this action on this image and see how it works. It's a totally different image. And by the way, I'm going to flatten this image because it has multiple layers right now. And this particular action was recorded for a layer that was flattened. But you can see it worked just beautifully well even with this image. This is one of Judy's images. So I use this occasionally, and when I need that border rule, there it is. And by the way, let me go back and open that image once again, wherever it went to. Oh, this is today. Let's go back to yesterday. Run the action. And now I'm ready to put a title into this. So I do this manually. I'm not sure I'd want to put the action to put the text in for me. So I'm going to take the type tool, and in the top part of the option bar, I'm going to select the center option. And now by clicking anywhere on the image, we can type the title of this image. Whoops. Whoops means what? Command Control Z. Pardon me. So the title of this is going to be Georgia on My Mind, because this was shot in Georgia. I don't care for the font. Let's go ahead and select the entire font. And in the upper left-hand corner, I'm going to highlight the font. And let me zoom up because it's probably hard to see on screen. I'm just going to click and highlight the name of the font. And now that I've done that, I can type the up and down arrow key to toggle through the different fonts in my system and take a look. As a matter of fact, if we go to View and Extras, which will hide the selection, let me zoom up for you here too. Can I do this without making a mess? Hang on. No, I can't. Oh well. Now I'm going to have to make a mess. Sorry about that. My text is in here somewhere. I'll just start all over. I was trying to get this so you could see it. I realized I was zoomed back so far you can hardly see it. Okay, Georgia. On my mind. Select all, and then I'm going to highlight once again the text in the upper left-hand corner, and then type the left or right arrow key. This way, and let's go to View, Extras. So it hides my highlight of the text itself, and now we can see the different fonts that are in the system until you find a font that you want to use, unless you know the type of font that you want to use. And right now, I didn't pre-think this out, so I'm not seeing any font that I particularly want, but let's use this one, and I'm sure an art director out there is saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're using that font. But you get the idea here. What I want to do is make sure that's exactly in the center. And in order to do that, I'm going to do two things. Show ruler, Command or Control R, and then select the entire image, Command or Control A, and then free transform, Command or Control T. This is might be a quicker way to do this, but this is the way I do it, and I have to do that on the image itself. What this does, it shows me the exact center because of this adjustment button here. I know where the exact center is. I can now take from the ruler, from the left side, click and drag a guide out, position that right on that center button, and now I can hit Escape for the free transform. And with the Move tool, I'll take the text and position that right. It kind of snaps right into the center. So this way, I'm sure that I've got the text in the center. Print this out, sign it, and you've got a great looking finished piece. Is that good? Yay, awesome.
Can we ask you a few questions on that, Eddie?
Okay.
Awesome. So, first question is, I have, from Lori46, I only have Photoshop Elements. Can this be done in Elements?
That is a good question, and I don't know the answer to that because I don't use Elements.
All right, well, I'm sure there is a place to find out.
Yes, so...
Google, perhaps.
Perhaps.
I have... Go ahead, Eddie.
My gut feeling is that you can do this on Elements. I'm trying to remember where the limitations are with Elements, and I don't think they're here. I could be wrong, but if somebody can chime in on that, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
Good question, though.
I have a question from Singapore, and that is, Eddie, do you ever use a droplet or usually just actions?
I just use actions. I used to use droplets, and what a droplet is an action that you create as an icon on your desktop or put it wherever you want to. And then you can drag an image to the droplet. It opens up Photoshop, plays the action, and if the action saves the file, it saves it right back to where it came from. So droplets are very productive. In my personal workflow, I don't need droplets anymore, but I used to use them, especially for color management reasons 10 years ago when color management was a little more complicated.
Okay.
So I believe you said the answer to no was this, but if we can confirm, question from Brenda J was, can you make an action that requires using a brush set to a specific size and opacity?
You can have an action select the brush for you, and you should be able to create the brush size and opacity. Shall we try that?
Sure. Yeah, if you could, perhaps, yeah, people were also requesting, as always, if we could do this one more time. And we're wondering if when you do go through creating the action and saving the action and running an image through it again, if possible, and then if you could call out the commands as you do it, that would be awesome.
Okay, and by the way, once you create an action set in an action, it's in Photoshop. And if Photoshop for some reason would crash, you've lost all of that. So to save it, you have to actually go to the set, to the flyout menu, and I'll do this for you in a second.
Cool.
And save that, so if there is a problem during your session, it's saved. Now, with that being said, if you create an action in a set and close Photoshop and reopen it, it's going to be there. It's not going to be lost. So that's just an anomaly that used to be in Photoshop. I imagine it's the same way today. I haven't had Photoshop CS6 crash on me. Notice I'm knocking on wood here. Okay. Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah, your action on for what you did, it also shows up in the history, right?
Yes. During a session, what you do now shows up in the history panel as what you've previously done. That is correct.
Can you just copy that history and put it into action?
Unfortunately, I do not believe you can copy the history panel and place that into an action. I don't believe that's possible. That would be nice. And do you remember we're in Photoshop? So not in Lightroom. So the actions in Lightroom will stay there, or the steps, if you will, history. Once again, so I'm going to throw this border rule action away. I'm going to go back in history to the beginning so we can redo this. I've already created the action set, which is a folder called CL. And now by clicking on this icon, this will create a new action. Create new action, it says. And we'll click here. And it brings up the new action interface. So we can name this action. Let's name this border rule. It's going to be in the CL set. You can actually assign a function key to an action, which is cool. Because if all you had an action do is rotate an image, and all you want to do is hit a function key to do that, this is where you could assign that very easily outside of going to set up a menu system. You can also set up a color coding for actions. I'm not going to get that deeply into that. I would imagine that Lisa Snyder had covered that sort of thing. But just to create an action, let's go ahead and click record. And what do we have? We have the red button. Now, everything we're going to do is going to be recorded. Do you remember the first thing we want to do? Type the letter D to default the foreground and background color. And now we're going to expand the canvas using the menu item, image, and canvas size. Here we're going to use the relative option and type in 2 inches for the width, 2 inches for the height, using the background color, which happens to be white. That gives us the white background. The next step is to select all. That's Command or Control A, or it's under the Select menu, All. This selects the entire frame. Now, that's probably very hard to see online, so I'm going to zoom up close and zoom in again to see if you can actually see this. So there's the active or marching ants all the way around the edge of the frame. And the step at this point is to add the border rule itself, and that's done under Edit and Stroke, the Stroke command. Here you can tell the width of the stroke. We're going to use 3 pixels with black color, or whatever color you want to choose. You can actually click on this little color box and change the color as you normally would with the color picker. The center location, and normal blending mode. And by the way, this entire box is default setting. So I haven't changed anything. When you first go to the stroke command, this is what you see. And we'll go back one more time to image, canvas size, expand the canvas one more time, 2 inches for the height and width. Select OK. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the action at this point. And the way to stop the action is to click on this square box right next to the red circle, and the action is done. So, to answer the second part of that question, I'm going to go ahead and start recording inside the same action, because you can do that. If you've missed a step or want to add a step to an action, you can actually go back and start recording again. And the way to do that is to select the point of insertion where you want to start recording again in the Actions panel, and simply click on the circle. And when it turns red, you're recording again. So what I found, if you want to select the brush tool, the first thing you want to select is the move tool. Now there could be other ones, but this is just what I have found in creating actions. Once you've selected the move tool and the tool palette, then you go to the brush tool, select the brush tool, and the action has selected the brush tool. To select a brush size, to have the action selected, if it will at all, we'll find out here in a second, we're going to go to the brush icon in the upper left-hand corner of the option bar and change the brush size, or even type in a brush size. And by doing this, the action should follow suit with this. So let's go to a 1200 pixel brush. And it says set current brush. So it did in fact set the brush size. And now let's go to the opacity in the option bar and highlight this and type in an opacity setting of 75%. And that did not record. So I'm going to stop recording action, and let's go back and play this action again by going back in history, starting all over. I'm going to select the eyedropper tool just for the heck of it, and let's play the action and see what happens. Well, the action is done. It has in fact selected the brush tool. It is at 70, well, I put it at 75%, so it's 1200 pixels. Let's change the pixel size. Play the action one more time. What a great question, and we're all learning on this one. So playing the action, I've got my brush set to 100% at 250 pixels wide. After we play the action, the brush is 1200 pixels, it's still at 100%. So what I've learned and what we've discovered is the action, doing it the way I've just done it, will not set the opacity. Great questions from the internet. Thank you for that. Any questions here, guys? Good.
I've got a question, Eddie. This comes from the chat room. Let's see here. This comes from Sire Purdue. He says, can you please repeat where to save the actions again in case of a crash?
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. So here's the deal. When you have created an action set, which is a folder, you select, you highlight the set, just like I've done here, highlight the set, and then go to the flyout menu in the Actions panel. This little down turn in the corner takes you to a flyout menu. This is where you go to save actions. And I'm having to, here we go. If you go down far enough, it says Save Actions. When you save the action, you decide the location you want to save it, and save the action, and now it's completely saved. And you can even send that to another computer and load that action so you have the entire action set.